So today, we're going to talk about someone who looked at the world around him, specifically 19th century India, and just said, nope, we can do better. His name was Jyotiba Phule, and he wasn't just a reformer. He was truly an architect of a new kind of society.
All right, so let's get right into it. And everything we're about to cover, it comes straight from these amazing notes right here. We're really going to the source to get a handle on the core ideas that made Phule's work so revolutionary. I mean, think about it for a second. How do you actually challenge centuries of tradition? We're talking about a social structure that's been around forever, something that seems completely unshakable. Where do you even start? Well, that's exactly the massive task Jyotiba Phule took on. So, to get a grip on how he did it, we're going to break it down into 4 key parts. First, we'll look at his fight for education for everyone. Then, his head-on challenge to the caste system. After that, the society he created to keep the movement going. And finally, the incredible power he wielded with his pen. All right, first things first, education. For Phule, this was everything. It wasn't just about books and learning your ABCs, it was the absolute master key, the one thing that could unlock a person's potential and really lead to freedom. You have to picture the world he was living in. Knowledge was power, for sure, but it was hoarded. It was a privilege kept under lock and key, really only for upper caste men. And what that meant was that women and entire lower caste communities were basically shut out from any chance at real empowerment. And that brings us to a really important year, 1848. Now, this isn't just some random date on a calendar. It's the year that a quiet but massive revolution kicked off. Just one single act that would create ripples for generations. So what did they do? Well, they didn't just talk about the problem. They took action. In that year, 1848, Jyotiba and his wife Savitribai, and she's so important here, they opened the first ever school for girls in Pune. You can't overstate how radical this was at the time. It was practically unthinkable, but they knew it was the first essential step. But here's the thing, opening schools, that was just the first move on the chessboard. Phule knew that education wasn't the end goal. It was the weapon for a much bigger fight. He was going after the caste system itself, a full-on attack on the very root of inequality. So let's be clear what we're talking about, the caste system. It was this incredibly rigid social ladder that you were born onto. It decided your status, your job, pretty much all of your rights right from birth. And as these notes make clear, Phule saw it as the main engine driving all the discrimination and oppression in society. And this is where Phule's thinking gets, well, really radical. He wasn't looking to just tweak the system, make it a little bit fairer around the edges. No way. His argument was totally explosive for the time. He said that if you ever want real social justice, the entire system has to go. Not reformed, abolished. Okay, so you have this powerful, radical idea. But an idea alone doesn't change the world, right? You need a movement. And that brings us to his third big move. He created an organization to turn his vision into a real collective mission. And yep, you guessed it. Here's another key date for you. 1873. This is the year Phule made it official. He gave his movement a name, a structure, something that could last. He called it the Satya Shodak Samaj, which basically means the Truth Seekers Society. And its goal was super clear: fight for social equality. It was meant to be a place where people from lower castes could finally come together, get organized, and work for their own empowerment. What he was really doing here was proposing a massive philosophical shift. It was out with the old hierarchy where your life is determined by who you were born as, and in with a totally new vision. A vision inspired by thinkers like John Locke, one that put equality and individual freedom right at the center. All right, so this brings us to the fourth front in his battle against injustice, and his weapon of choice, the pen. You see, Phule wasn't just an activist on the ground. He was a seriously powerful and prolific writer. The big problem he was up against was a problem of silence. The mainstream culture, the books, the history, it was all written as if the majority of people just didn't exist. Their struggles, their stories, their very humanity, it was all invisible. And Phule was determined to change that. So he wrote, and he wrote a lot in the Marathi language. He created these incredibly powerful books that literally gave a voice to the voiceless. You have titles like Gulamgiri, which means slavery, or Shetkaryacha Asud, the cultivator's whipcord. These weren't just books, they were weapons designed to expose injustice and lay out a whole new way of thinking about society. And as our notes point out so well, every single thing he wrote was laser focused on social justice, on caste discrimination, and empowering women. For him, writing wasn't just art, it was a tool for real political change. So when you boil it all down, what's his lasting legacy? It's really this powerful two-step formula. Step 1, raise consciousness. Make people actually aware of the injustices around them. And step 2, turn that awareness into direct, transformative action. In the end, Jyotiba Phule wasn't just patching up a broken system. He was literally drawing the blueprint for a brand new one. He laid the foundation, both the ideas and the practical steps, for generations of activists and leaders who would carry that torch forward in the fight for social and political rights all across India. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? Phule started asking these huge questions about education, about equality, about what justice really means, more than 150 years ago. So the real question for us is, which of those exact same questions are we still trying to answer today?